Are you ready to boost your confidence when selling so you're able to close more deals? Nikki Roush will show you how to build a foundation of skills and a mindset that creates sales success without feeling pushy or salesy and without fear of rejection. She is a sales strategist and coach with more than 25 years of sales experience and is master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. This is a radically different approach to selling. It's a no sleaze, no slime, and no stress approach to building your business. This is Sales Maven. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Roush. I'm your own personal sales maven, here to offer you tips, techniques, and strategies to master your sales conversations. Today's episode is around how to have a strategy for making better business decisions. Now, before we jump into that, I want to invite you, if you haven't yet signed up for the resources for the podcast listeners, I have created a little special place that you can go and opt in, and there is some resources there available that you only get as a podcast listener. So if you haven't signed up for that yet, I just want to encourage you to do that. You can find those by going to yoursalesmaven.com/Maven. And once you click in there, once you put your information in, it'll take you to a page and you'll get to see all the different resources that are in there. There's actually a paid training in there that I am gifting to you as a listener. So you don't have to pay for it. You get it for free as a listener. So if you haven't signed up for those yet, I want to encourage you to do that. And before we jump into the content today, I do want to give a shout out for somebody who left me a very nice 5-star review. Thank you so much, Tracy Warren. It says, always a wealth of practical information. Nikki Roush is a wealth of great information that's always delivered in a way that's easy to digest, and when you put her ideas into practice, can make a difference immediately! ! Highly recommend you listen and become a part of anything she offers. I love that. Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate you, friend. So nice that you left a review. I'm really grateful. As a listener, if you haven't left a review and or rated the podcast, would you take a moment to do that sometime today? That would mean the world to me. And it also helps other people find the podcast, decide to give it a listen when they see that other people are listening and rating and reviewing the podcast. I'd be so grateful. Thank you so much. All right. So strategies for making better decisions. I'm not sure that I've talked about this at all yet on the podcast. And we'll see. We'll see if you've heard me talk about this before. I know a lot of my clients have. Now, oftentimes when you're deciding about doing something or signing up for something or putting your hard-earned dollars towards something, we often get told to think about things in the perspective of what's the ROI? And I love that. So ROI, return on investment. And it's super important when you're thinking about spending money, spending time, spending effort, sharing your expertise. What is your return on investment? But there's something else I learned about years ago, and I use this a lot. And I talk about it a lot. I think about it a lot. And I just wanted to share a little bit around it today in case this is helpful for you when you're deciding what to invest in, what to spend time on, what to say yes to, what to say no to, all of these things. I'm going to give you some questions to ask yourself. And this is more about ROO. So I love this idea of ROO. I can't even remember where I first heard this. I think it was years and years and years ago. I was attending a trade show in Las Vegas for trade show event planners. I wasn't a trade show event planner, but I did the most trade shows for the company that I was working with at the time. I was kind of their go-to gal for trade shows with somebody from the marketing team. I was like the sales representative side of the business with somebody in marketing. And they sent us to this trade show for trade show organizers. And somebody taught this, I think, in a breakout room. They taught about ROO, return on opportunity. And it has been something I've just carried with me. This has probably been now, 20 some years since I attended this conference in Las Vegas. and this idea of return on opportunity. So I think about it a lot. And as a matter of fact, I talk about it often with my CFO. We meet monthly, and I think about my CFO as my strategic partner. Now, my CFO doesn't just work in my business. She's a CFO for hire. She's amazing. I've actually featured her on the podcast before, Michelle Cooper of Alchemy Accounting. And Michelle and I meet every single month. And I think about Michelle as my strategic partner. And when I'm deciding to make big investments in my business, I often kind of run them by her. I also run by offers. We kind of talk about and strategize sometimes around offers that I'm going to make out into the marketplace. Like, is this going to make sense? Does it make me money? What is the result of it? But sometimes when I'm thinking about something that doesn't have a very specific ROI, return on investment, attached to it, I will oftentimes present and talk through things and ask for her advice and her kind of take on it from this perspective of ROO, return on opportunity. I remember years ago, I thought for sure she was going to think I was so crazy when I went to her and talked about the cost, time, effort involved in the third book, The Selling Staircase. Because the thing about books, for me personally, this might not be the case for people who have a much bigger presence in the market and or big publishers, working with them. But for me, books are not a moneymaker. So deciding to put out a third book, it was a pretty big investment of time and money for the team that I worked with to, essentially take all of the content that I had and put it into the book form, and the months and months of editing and all the stuff involved with it. So when I initially went to her with this idea of this third book, which is the Selling Staircase, as you can tell, I got the green light from her, but it was a pretty big chunk of money I was going to put out, and there wasn't going to be a real clear ROI on that opportunity. So we talked about it and strategized around it of the idea of ROO. And I will say it has been an incredible, the return on opportunity for that particular book has been an incredible, it's brought an incredible amount of new clients to the business. It has brought opportunities that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. It has definitely, elevated. Sometimes when you hear somebody that's like, oh, I've got a book. Oh yeah, everybody's got a book. Well, I have 3 books. And when you start hearing people have multiple books, I think it raises the credibility of the person, because you're like, oh, well, that takes some effort. And so there's all these return on opportunities that have come as a result of the book. So when opportunities are presented to me, I often ask myself, is there ROI and is there ROO? So is there a return on investment and is there a return on opportunity? And if I can't say yes to at least one of those, then my answer is no to whatever it is that I'm thinking about doing, what I've been asked to do, what somebody wants from me, because it just doesn't make sense right now in my business with my, only very limited amount of time that I can dedicate to any type of new projects, because my time is really tied up in my business, tied up with my client work, tied up with the continuing to scale the business, all the things that go into that. So when you think about your own decision-making process, there are times where you might say, I don't really see the ROI for this. And take a step back and ask yourself, what is the return on opportunity? One of my favorite podcasters, I don't listen as much as I used to, so I'm not up to speed on what's going on with him, but I love Adam Carolla. I've really been a fan of his. I was a fan of his when he had a radio station or a radio show. When I was traveling, it was so great because he was on so many. It was a syndicated radio show. So he was wherever I was traveling, and you're in the rental car and you turn on the radio in the morning when I'm stuck in traffic, driving to wherever I'm going to have a meeting. I could usually find his radio show, and that's how I became a fan. And then when he started his podcast, I didn't actually discover it right away. I think I didn't find my way to it until about 2010, but that's when I really kind of got into podcasting, listening to podcasts because of Adam. And Adam Carolla, sometimes I've heard him say that he will ask himself when he gets presented with opportunities, because he's a very busy guy, he's super successful, he's done some really great things to, provide for his family, and he's built this incredible podcast. And so I've heard him say before that he will ask himself these 2 questions. So I'm actually going to give you 7 of my questions, but here are the 2 that he will ask himself. The first question is, he says, whatever the opportunity is for him, does it make me money? And the second question is, does it make me happy? And if he can't say yes to one of those questions, does it make me money and or does it make me happy, then his automatic answer is no. So I've always loved that. I've taken that on in my own business too, but sometimes I think you got to dig just a little bit deeper. And that's why I chose to have this particular topic be a part of the podcast today, because I was thinking about it and I was talking about it with somebody recently who was really struggling around this concept of having an opportunity presented, but not seeing the immediate return on investment. And so really kind of struggling to wrap their head around saying yes to this. And it reminded me of a blog post that I'd written years ago. And I go back and I look at these questions, and I think it's just important to really evaluate these opportunities from the whole picture, not just looking at it from is it going to make me money? Now, I will say, side note here, I'm taking a step to the side and saying, as a sales coach, I always want my clients to do things that are going to generate revenue. And as a matter of fact, I will often say revenue generating activities first. And then there should be time for some of these opportunities that may not have a direct ROI, but the opportunity of what's possible is much bigger. So here are the questions. The first question that I would encourage you to ask yourself is, do I want and or need the experience? Now, sometimes when you're first starting out, of course we want to get paid for stuff, but there are times where it makes sense to say yes to something to get the experience of it. So for instance, if somebody asks you to go on their podcast and you want the experience and or you need the experience, maybe saying yes is a good idea, even though you might go, I don't know if I'm going to get anything out of it. Well, you are going to get something out of it. You're going to get the experience of being on a podcast. So as you continue to grow your business, there will be other opportunities, and now you'll feel more comfortable, right? You'll have gained some confidence around doing it by saying yes to being on somebody's podcast that maybe has a really small podcast, or they're just starting out, or maybe it's not a topic that is your number one thing you want to talk about, but sometimes saying yes is a good thing. Now, the second question is, are you willing to invest the time and effort to do the follow-up needed on whatever the opportunity is? And I want you to ask yourself, and be really honest, because a lot of times people go, oh yeah, I'll follow up with the leads that come from this, or I'll follow up with the organizers of the such and such, or yeah, I'll do all the due diligence behind it. But then if you look at your past experience, are you somebody who does the follow through? Do you have the follow through? If you don't have the follow through, you may need to say no, because you probably won't really maximize whatever the return on opportunity is for you if you're not willing to do the follow through. And there are things that I have to say no to, because I know that's not something I'm going to follow through on. I know me, and there are certain limitations, and or if I can't pass certain things on to my team, it's just a no, because I'm not going to do all the work that needs to be done to really make this a viable opportunity over the long period of time. Now, I mentioned earlier, a podcast, maybe that doesn't have as much follow through, But there are things like speaking at something. Somebody asked you to go speak somewhere. It might not be your ideal audience, but maybe you're trying to really like hone your speaking chops, or maybe you're trying to put yourself in front of more people or put your message and test something out in the market. And so you say yes to it. And you still need to be able to follow up with the people who express interest. And are you going to do that? Like, before you decide to join that networking group, if you're not going to take the time to really connect with members in the group other than the like structured meetings, should you be investing your money? Or should you join that group if you're not going to show up to the meetings? I know I joined a group this last year, and it was a pretty big investment, frankly, but I was willing to do it because I actually did go through these questions that I'm asking you to ask yourself. And the return on opportunity was worth it for me, even if I only attended a fourth of the time. And that's about what I've been doing. I haven't been able to attend every single meeting, but the meetings that I have attended have been good. I've made some connections. Haven't seen any business from it yet. That's okay, because I'm playing the long game in this particular opportunity. But I had to really ask myself, like, am I going to follow through? There's one big piece of this networking opportunity that involves like getting into Slack and communicating with people there. And I don't do that. And I knew I wasn't going to do that. Like, that's like one more place I have to go open some app and get involved in something that I'm just not going to do. This is also why I haven't signed up for Clubhouse yet. As much as people keep saying like, Nikki, you should be on Clubhouse. I just haven't, because I know right now I don't have the follow through. So the answer is no right now on that, even though I feel like I should, I feel like I want to, but I cannot say yes to number 2. That am I willing to invest the time and effort to follow through to make it work? So that's the second question. Number 3 is, will you be discouraged if you don't close immediate business in saying yes to whatever the opportunity is? Will you be discouraged if you don't close immediate business? And again, be really honest with yourself. Sometimes you need to add this word to the end of the question, which is, will you be discouraged if you don't close immediate business? Really? Like, check yourself to this one. I have so many clients that come with like big dreams about whatever opportunity is presented to them. And sometimes, like, I'm not the dream killer, I promise, but sometimes I have to like, hey, slow down a little bit. What if you don't see immediate business? Like, what if the dollars don't just start rolling in from whatever you're going to do? This is also sometimes when clients position to me like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast, or hey, I'm going to start a membership program, or whatever it is. Sometimes I have to like, let's really check and go, are you going to be discouraged and are you going to give up if you don't have 100 people sign up right away for your membership? And sometimes the answer, like they'll say like, no, but is that a real no? That's actually a yes. When somebody says no to you, that's probably a yes to that question. Yes, they are going to be discouraged. And do you want to go down that road and spend all the time and energy getting something set up, a podcast, a membership, whatever it is, if you don't see like a bunch of people flock to it right away? Then you probably shouldn't do it. I wish I could say like setting up a membership and setting up a podcast means immediate sales. It's so awesome. It is awesome, but it takes time. It takes time for everybody. Like, I've had my membership since 2017. I still, to this day, have not exceeded the goal that I set for the membership in 2017. And yet the membership has been highly profitable for my business. It's super fulfilling as far as the clients that I get to work with in there. And I still haven't hit that first like pie in the sky goal that I set back in 2017. I'm working on it. I'm getting so close, but it took a while. And if I'd been discouraged in that first year, I could have like shut it down and done something else. And man, I would have missed out on so many amazing opportunities, and I would have missed out on so many amazing clients. And frankly, I would have missed out on like multi six figures that the membership has brought in since then. Okay. So think about this. Are you going to be discouraged? Number 4 is, what will you be giving up to pursue this activity? What will you be giving up to pursue this activity? Because there's always something at risk. And again, be really candid, be really transparent with yourself. What will you be giving up to pursue this activity? You know, I mentioned my own membership, the Sales Maven Society. I really had to give up on this idea about the value of my trainings and the value of my time initially. Now, it works out today in 2021. It works out on a whole different level as far as the value that I personally get, like how much I make. If you're looking at of like, how much do I make an hour versus, and are my trainings really like making money, all this training content that I put in there, when I'm letting people come into the group on trials. And sometimes people come in and they just like try to like suck as much of the training out of it as they can, and then they leave in the first month. That happens all the time. But like, what will I be giving up if I pursue this activity? So I had to give up like some ego, frankly, around that. That was a hard one. That was at risk of like, what do I really value? My time and my trainings. And I have to remember that I don't do it for the person who comes in and stays 1 month and leaves and just goes through as much of the training as fast as they can. And then that's it. I do it for the people who come in, who take their time, who spend time in the group, who participate, who really want to learn how to hone their selling skills, not just be fire hosed with training. Because believe me, there's tons of training in there and you can definitely fire hose yourself in a month. But how much of it can you actually take in and implement over a period of time? And will those 1 month people be successful like the people who've been in there for multiple months, some of them years? No, like I know that, but I still don't like put up a roadblock, right? So what will I be giving up? Ask yourself, what will you be giving up? What will be at risk if you pursue whatever it is that you're going to do from a decision-making standpoint? Number 5, what steps can you take to minimize the risk that you listed for the question above? So what will you be giving up? What will be at risk? And then the next question is, what steps can you take to minimize the risk you listed for the question above? This is such an important question to be able to answer. And I will say that one of the things I had to really come to terms with was I needed to go above and beyond. I needed to give even more in order to minimize the risk of somebody coming in, staying for 1 month on a trial and leaving. So the way that I did that is I started doing live coaching, like coaching calls, live Q&As, where my team or my group gets to ask me straight up coaching questions that people pay a premium to get private sessions with me with. They get to do this in a group setting. So the steps that I needed to minimize the risk is I had to show incredible value for people to want to stay month after month. And I have to continue to earn that business month after month. And I have to always be asking myself, like, how can I minimize the risk? I heard Jocelyn Sams say this one time. I'm not going to say it exactly right. So if you know Jocelyn Sams from Flipped Lifestyle, she's amazing. I adore her and Shane, and have been a big, big fan and been a client for many years with them. And I heard Jocelyn say something one time about like, somebody was like, oh, I'm afraid to start a membership because somebody's just going to come in, steal all my content and leave and, not really pay the value that it's worth. And she said something like, Yeah, that's always a concern. And, people rob banks, but that doesn't keep banks from like putting up a new bank or something like that. And I remember thinking like, oh yeah, that's so smart. Like so many of us sometimes want to like try to figure out the answer or make a decision based on like the one negative person or the one like person that is going to make us feel less than in some way. But really what we need to do is do the things for the people who are going to find the value and benefit. So when you're making a decision and you're thinking about how to minimize your risk, like think about who are you really doing it for? Who's going to benefit? What's the return on opportunity? For me, the return on opportunity for the people who come in, who stay, even for the people who come, like take content and leave, I always think the return on opportunity is if they get one thing that helps them grow their business and helps them bring more revenue into their business, that then allows for them to have more money to take home to their families and or invest in their communities, then at least there was that. Like that always feels good for me. Okay, so number 6, what's there to gain by saying yes to whatever the thing is, whatever the opportunity is? What is there to gain by doing this activity? And I suggest that you like really write down these questions and write down your answers. Make a list of the possible best case scenarios. I remember during the pandemic, an opportunity got presented to me that my initial response was like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like I had to, it was a speaking opportunity, an unpaid speaking opportunity. And it was incredibly early in the morning. Like I always say, like, I'm not like a early morning person and I'm not a late night person. I'm like a middle of the day kind of girl. Like my sweet spot is like between 9 and 2. Like those hours for me are like, that's when I'm at my best. So this particular opportunity I had to get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. I had to be ready to actually train and present at 6 o'clock in the morning. So it was pretty early. And I didn't really have any connections or affiliations with the group that was asking me to speak. One of my clients recommended it, which is why it even got on my radar. When my clients send opportunities or like want to connect me with people, I tend to pay more attention to those versus some random person reaching out to me and asking me to do something for free. And so I said yes. And it was this like, this could just be another one of those total duds. I have no idea what this could turn into. But when I sat down and asked myself, number 6 here, what's there to gain by doing this activity, is I actually thought to myself, I don't really have any connections to this organization. So what there is to gain is I may actually connect with people that I would never come into contact with otherwise, who could potentially benefit from the message that I'm going to share in this talk that I'm going to give. And so when I looked at it from that, it was a much easier yes. So yes, you have to get up early. Yes, you have to, present and like give away your stuff for free, but let's see what happens. And so I actually said yes to it. And man, am I so glad that I did. I am so glad that I did. That immediately there was like, and people always say like whenever people ask you to do stuff for free, I feel like they sometimes exaggerate like the upside of doing it. Like there's going to be, 100 people on the call, and then you get there and there's like 12, right? Like I've had so many of those opportunities where somebody's been like, there's going to be 100 people for you to talk to. And then, it's like 12 people. I did this recently where I did get asked to speak to a group, and I said yes because it was a former client. I said yes to doing it. And she's like, we tend to get like 30 to 40 people. And I show up at this event and there are like 6 people there, and 4 of them are already clients. So it was one of those like, wah, wah, like, okay, so I'm doing it for the other 2 people in the room. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so back to this original story that I was telling here is that I'm so glad that I did say yes to this particular thing, because when I looked at what was the upside and speaking to a group that I might never get into contact with otherwise, it turned out that there was 1,000 people on the call, and they ended up broadcasting my training in multiple different ways and delivering it out to people in this organization, which has brought in like 500 subscribers to my email list. And not only 500 subscribers, which by the way, there's only one other podcast that I've ever been on that has brought in that amount of subscribers. So there's only been like one other opportunity, like from one specific thing, that I can directly attribute 500 subscribers to my list. And by the way, this number continues to grow. So the podcast that I'm talking about, that was something I was on 3 years ago. This is something I did this last year, and it's already brought in like that same amount of numbers. And it's something that apparently they're going to keep up it's going to be an evergreen like opportunity as they bring in new members. New members will have opportunities to see this talk that I did. And so it'll continue to bring in subscribers to my list. So when you think about like the ROI, if I had said no to that because I can't directly attribute like income to this speaking opportunity, I would have missed out on these 500 plus subscribers. It's over 500 now. And not only that, but quite a few of those people have joined the Sales Maven Society. Quite a few of them have signed up for masterclasses, and even a few of them have signed up and paid to do strategy sessions with me, like out of the blue. People that I didn't know at all, had no contact with them, go onto my website. They hear me in this talk. They go onto my website and they just buy a strategy session, and I show up to the strategy session and here they are. So the return on opportunity for that was ginormous. And of course, now the return on investment like has paid for itself, I don't know, 1,000 times over, and will continue to. So, okay. So when you ask yourself, what's there to gain by doing this opportunity, make a list of the best case scenarios. And then here's the last question in this series of 7 questions to make better decisions about what you're going to say yes to is, what steps can you take to maximize achieving the best case scenario? What step can you take to maximize achieving the best case scenario? So in the particular case of the story that I just mentioned to you, one of the things that I did, they were really clear with me in this opportunity, which again was kind of another red flag of like, oh, do I want to do this thing for free? They were like, no selling, none. And so I asked, can I make an offer for something free for your members to download? And they said yes. Now, if I hadn't asked that, and if I hadn't positioned that during the talk and got people excited about it, I might not have gotten the 500 plus subscribers. That would have maybe determined whether or not I would have done this. I might have said no, frankly, but even if I had said yes, if they said no to me offering a download, it would have still paid for itself. So thankfully they said yes. And it has resulted, like I said, in this amazing return on opportunity. So I'm going to give you the 7 questions again really quickly. Number 1, do you want and or need the experience? Number 2, are you willing to invest the time and effort to follow up with the people or follow up in whatever way that takes for whatever the opportunity is? Number 3, will you be discouraged if you don't close immediate business? Number 4, what will you be giving up to pursue this activity? Remember, there's always something at risk. Be candid, be honest. What is it? Number 5, what steps can you take to minimize the risk that you listed to question 4? Number 6, what's there to gain by doing and saying yes to whatever the decision is? What's there to gain? Make a list of your best case scenarios. Number 7, what steps can you take to maximize achieving the best case scenarios? So those are your 7 questions for making better decisions about what to say yes to in your business. Now, of course, you can apply these to a lot of different areas of your life when you're thinking about what is the return on opportunity for you. I hope you found this episode helpful. And if you really take some time to go through the questions and answer them when you're making some decisions, you may find that you will say no to things that you might have been tempted to say yes to, and you'll probably be super glad you went through this exercise. And you may even find that you're going to start saying yes to some things that you had originally said or would have said no to because you're looking at it from a different perspective. So let me know how it goes. I want to hear. I'd love to hear if you go through these questions. What did you find? What was some new aha or new awareness for you? All right, so let's move to the section where we talk about what is the question. I mentioned 2021 in all of the episodes. Right now is the year of the question. So I want to give you a question that you can ask in your potential discovery calls with clients, or maybe when you're having conversations with somebody. You might say, what, if anything, has this costed you so far by not moving forward or by not having already done this? What, if anything, has this cost you so far by not moving forward on this? That's the question. All right. And as we wrap up today, I would like to invite you to join the Sales Maven Society. If you're not a member yet, come join us. This is the best place for you to start igniting your sales. This is the place where we'll connect, me and you. You bring your questions, you bring your concerns, you bring your sales situations, and I'll provide answers, guidance, and everything you need to boost your confidence in all of your sales situations. You can join the Sales Maven Society right now by going to salesmavensociety.com and then enter in the coupon code 47trial. That's 47TRIAL. And for your first month, I'm going to take $100 off the monthly membership rate. So you can come and join for your first month for only $47. You'll get access to all the training content. You'll get access to live calls with me. You'll get access to an incredible Facebook group of people who are asking great questions, who are offering suggestions and resources. And I'm in there every day answering questions as well. So come connect with us. And then last, if we haven't connected yet on social media, let's do that. I tend to hang out on LinkedIn, Instagram, and those are kind of the 2 main places. I spend quite a bit of time in the Facebook group, but that's really only for people who are already in the Sales Maven Society. So I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn and or Instagram. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. I'm so grateful you're here and spent this time with me today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.